to order, and please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty. The first item is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I'll give everybody a chance to look over them. They came rather late in the day.
Yeah. Pretty thorough. Motion to accept the meetings as written from January 17th meeting.
I'll second.
All right. Mike made the motion, second by Deb. Any discussion, changes, corrections?
On an admin note, if since Jeff's not here, I can do that for you
Okay.
as the advice. I'll take the minutes.
All right. Whenever you're set, Mike.
Yes.
I mean, you all set on the minutes?
Yeah.
You set up, okay. No discussion on the
Yeah.
minutes?
I don't have any
All right.
discussion.
On the motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting, Mike?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
And yes.
1839.
The next item is the reserve fund that we had originally voted on and submitted for $75,000. And Carter sent us an email
Yep.
that he wanted to reduce that in the range of 32,000 to 41,000. Everyone get the email that I forwarded? And on this note, here is a sheet from the DLS concerning reserve funds. His rationale is similar to last year's when he saw, we submitted 80 and he sought to reduce that, and One of the reasons was the large increase at one time. The counter by this committee was a strong reserve fund in addition to a general stabilization fund bodes well for seeking a bond rating and demonstrating that the town has the ability to set aside a decent sum of money in a reserve for any issues that may come up during the year. And I believe, I did not go back and read the minutes verbatim, excuse me, but I believe it was mentioned and it was discussed last year that a couple of the things that have happened in the past have the fire department had a pump go down and it was about $25,000. For whatever reason, that department did not come to this committee for a request from the reserve, even though that's an item, an instance where it would be perfectly legitimate and a reason why that fund, and funded at 35, if you take the 25, and it was after the first of the year, if I recall correctly, that would have reduced it down to about 10,000 left in it. Another similar thing happened back in 2016, where the police chief had an accident. The insurance, the bill was $8,654.86. What happened there, rather than come to the town's reserve fund, they paid for the collision repairs out of the Board of Selectmen's office expense fund, and when the insurance check came in, it was put back there. The issue that came up with is at a town meeting previous, they had appropriated a sum of money, $64,608, and there was no real place to put it because an OPEB account fund was not set up at the time. So it was presented to town meeting that would be temporarily put into the Board of Selectmen's office expense fund, and they would not touch it. Well, when they took the 8,000 out of there, it dropped it down. So when we approached town meeting, which is just a few days out, we look at the budget versus actual, and there's not enough money in there to make the OPEB transfer. We inquired about that, and several days later, we got a copy of the check and the deposit, and the money was in fact put back in there, and so it brought the fund back up to a level where you could transfer the 64. Again, if you look in the Association of Town Finance Committee handbook, that's one of the examples they cite for the town's emergency reserve fund. If you have an accident, until you receive the insurance reimbursement, you pay for the cost out of the reserve fund, which has been the reason that I believe the committee has pushed to build this reserve fund up, and it's why I personally support a large amount. I understand it's pressure on the budget, and this year it's come out of the blue, the school increase in budget and bonds coming on and so forth. But I still firmly believe that it's a better way to go to have a larger reserve than not. And a point of clarification, it's not the advisory committee's emergency reserve.
Right.
It's the town's. It's just that finance committee or advisory committee is overseeing. You can't take money out of it without this committee voting and approving it.
Yep.
But, so, it's sometimes referred to as the advisory committee's reserve, but it's not. It belongs to the town.
Right.
And that
Jeff,
handout
do
that
you-
I gave you it shows that the law states, the max you can go is a 5% of the, levy, and we're, 75,000 is nowhere near that. I think 2.5% of our last year's levy is, like 260,000, so, I mean, 75 is way, way below that threshold. Carter did give in his emails some examples of, how other towns do it. He also made a note that from the Collins Center, you know, they referred him to the town of Sandusfield's policy. But I just don't trust that the Collins Center looks at a broad enough number of towns, and I just flip back to their memo that we discussed, this committee discussed when we were doing the bylaw, and they made the notation that they could only find one town where the advisory committee appoints its own members, and of course, after a little bit of work, it was, you know, we come up with over 20. But in the end,
Trend.
we made a recommendation, and Carter, when he does the budget, it's, he's shooting for the 41.
What if we,
So it's up to the, I mean, we
do
can,
you agree with this memo's FY data, 12 through 17, noting that there was no information for 14? It's kind of all over the place. Do you agree with those numbers? In his
there is,
email?
there is a record of those numbers. I believe I sent it out one time. It's because it's back
Yeah.
from like
But, like,
16, I think.
FY 19, 0, FY 18, 1,700, FY 17, 49,000,
well-
FY 16, 35,000.
Like I said, when Carter did when the fire pump went down, they didn't come to the reserve fund.
Right,
They
so
did-
that would have been,
They did
65.
transfers from other funds.
Right.
Instead of coming here, like when it happened, like in February, which we could do it, if you transfer it out of other accounts, you have to wait till May 1. And if you have an instance where that piece is needed, I mean, in the case of a fire department, you have, we don't have a pump, if we needed that apparatus, you could call like on Winchendon or Phillipston, and they could provide it, and then somebody else backs them up. But again, in that instance, I think it's a public safety issue, because you have to wait on, say, like the town of Winchton to come to Templeton to respond, rather than Templeton being able to do it. And again, that pump could have been fixed in a more timely fashion, rather than waiting till you get to the time period where you can do the transfers out of the funds. And that was some of the discussion about this committee. Why don't they just use the reserve fund? For whatever reason, they chose not to. And the same thing back in 16, they chose not to come to the reserve fund. You know, they took it out of an office expense. That's their policy, that's their decision they make. I question it, but that's about all we could do. I mean, we can't force them to come, but those are instances where it's why you have a reserve fund.
Do you think, looking at the past numbers, do you think 75,000 is kind of like a shock to the system?
It is, but, you know, and I understand that. It's just, I still, and again, this kind of gets into the checks and balances. I mean, that's from, you know, the executive branch, and we represent the legislative body. And that's what we voted, and now it's, you know, we could vote to change it, we could vote to leave it, and then when we go when they make the presentation on the 27th, and then on the 9th, when they go through all the departments and stuff, we could argue with there. We can still do a substitute motion at town meeting floor. We can include that, you know, in a report to town meeting, our recommendations. But the first thing really before us is do we want to vote to reduce it and submit, say, okay, we'll go with this amount? Or do we want to say, vote to, no, we don't want to change it. Our preference is to keep it at 75, is what it's going to really come down to. And of course now, I mean, there's an added pressure with $1,180,000
I know.
for the school.
Right.
I mean, I
There-
hate to seem very elementary about it, but what if we just split the difference? I mean, honestly, when I look at the past year's reserve funds, if we start to actually stabilize this seesaw and say, how about a gradual increase?
That's
If we don't get to 70, if we can eventually get to 75,000, I 100% agree with you. But if we gradually increase it, so it's not a shock to the system, especially within the current fiscal situation that we're trying to stare down. What if we proposed, whatever the percentage ours is versus his 5% recommendation, whatever the percentage would be for like 50,000?
His 0.5, 0.5%. And keep in mind, if whatever amount you put in there, if it's not used, it's gonna roll over into certified free cash, the unassigned balance, and then
So,
it can end up in savings, in
Yeah.
theory. Or pay for a capital item.
and they seem, the trend that I see is that they're being proactive about taking care of budget shortfalls. I think your example of something that occurs like an accident where you need immediate funds available rather than waiting to May 1st or otherwise, it makes complete sense. I'd want to help out, but I also at the same time want to say this is the path to fiscal responsibility. Making our trend line make sense, not this jagged one as it exists right now. Even if I were to take the high ones here, 47, 49, I think it's reasonable to say, let's keep an upward trend of being able to maintain some flexibility and call it 50. You wanted 32 to 41, what if we said 50? Kind of like I was saying, where you're splitting the difference on the low side for what our recommendation would have been.
So 50K.
I like
would
the
be
idea of
would be
keeping it a little
counter.
higher, like, I like the idea of 75, understanding, but, we wanna compromise, we wanna show everyone that we're working together to create this balance. But it also maybe will remind people that money is there for certain use, so come get it. Don't let it sit there,
Yeah.
don't try and mess around with other funds and move things in a way that could be seen as unsavory. Come get
It
the
looks-
reserve fund.
Yeah, to me, it looks messier when you have something, a pump, like say a pump breaks, or you have a car accident. That's not a budget thing, that's just, in a way, you could say the pump, maybe it should come out of like their repair or maintenance account, but the police department, the fire department, even after that, in fiscal 19, they've only have $5,000 in miscellaneous
Yeah,
apparatus repair, testing, inspections.
because
So,
you can't really know. Like things like a big break like that, it's like when the hot water heater goes at your house. Like you can't really
yeah,
predict.
you go, let's see, that thing's 10 years old, you run down, you look at one, you go, holy my.
Right, right.
And somewhere you gotta have money or way to replace it. And
Right.
it's,
So I like the idea of keeping it on the higher side because it will force people to come get it rather than look to their own, like where can we move this from this? And this is accessible, before May 1st.
Right, and we're kind of trending away from it, but it has still happened, and there is a memo in and we'll see that in the second quarter financial, but, there's already one fund that looks like there's gonna have to be some transfers to happen to put enough money in there to make it till June 30th, or actually July 15th, but
Right.
so we've been doing less of that in past few years.
Interesting.
but we've still had transfers. Even though, in some instances, I believe the money should have come from the reserve fund rather than the transfer route, which is a little more cumbersome in your time constraint,
Yeah.
May 1st to July 15th, rather than if something, you know, if you crash a car up in February, you can come get it.
Moving around between accounts, whether it's whatever town meeting, it didn't seem like it was small, you know, a grand or two, but it didn't seem like it was moving, you know, 100 or 20 or something like that. I don't know, I think 50, we still basically say that's what we recommend. But we come down from our high number.
Yeah.
So is
I know he was looking for an answer.
50 a number?
By next week. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like 50.
okay.
15. Isn't that like
With that
7.7% or something?
I don't know what it works out to
Yeah.
percentage-wise. But, you know, he offers it in
I said,
percentage and target,
200
and I would say, all right, well, you know, whatever, citing the reason why.
260,000 from last year's is like 2.5%. I'm just going off the
Okay.
Prop 2.5 increase off the levy, and then
Mhm.
you add 2.5, so 5 would be 400 and something thousand, so 50 is, it's less than, it's right in the ballpark of 5, maybe like 0.6% or 0.7.
Okay.
It's low, it's not up there.
Yeah. And
So-
you know, just a modest increase from what he had recommended. You know, that's fine, but I think we ought to,
We need to look upward and we need to catch things. Like, you know, in 17, he's got it at, it's 29,720. I mean, 49,720. So that's almost $50,000 right there anyway.
mhm.
And, okay, so 50K is the number that we can send to him to pencil in there. Somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll own it. I make a motion that we recommend the sum of $50,000 for Templeton's Mass General Law, Chapter 40, subsection 6 reserve,
All right,
which is a change from the current 75K.
submission. All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I'm good.
All right. Hearing none. Mike,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
I vote no. Just because.
Okay.
Okay, I asked if Mike could give us a capital planning update. Just kind of getting in preparation for the 27th of when they're gonna pass out the books, and Carter will give a presentation about, at least it's planned, go into the calendar they put out, of the warrant and the budget, basically, and that's when you'll get those infamous elusive binders with all the detailed stuff in it. That will change somewhat as we go along. And some of it is tax rate impact, and some of it is not, correct, Mike?
That is correct. Both were included.
Yep. Whenever
So,
you're
yeah,
ready.
I can do that. I can give a pretty good summation, and then I just typing out the rest of that. Let's see. Subsection 6.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Sure. Okay, I gave the Capital Planning Committee's recommendations on the Board of Selectmen meeting on January 23rd. And here is some of the board's recommendations. We had a little bit of a different format this year. We wanted to be able to present a cohesive document. Not that the last years were not cohesive.
They really were not.
Yeah, they just got down to the recommendations right away. I wanted to be able to offer our evaluation criteria, what we actually were looking for, how and why we made some of the decisions that we made. So I broke down the report, which I had emailed all of you tonight, so you can take a look through it, into sections, especially because it's a part of the record of the meeting of the 23rd. The town can actually look at that to say, I want to know immediately what the tax impact recommendations were. So just that's the note about the structure of the document. Essentially, we got together starting last October, and we started gathering our data. It really moves, it goes into 3 phases. How we organized ourselves, receiving the input from all of the department heads, and then we basically finish up with analysis and writing the report. This year, based on all of the positive data that we had this year, we had an assumed capital budget of $450,000. That was larger than last year's. I want to believe last year's was $100,000. So based on that, we not only reviewed the tax impacting recommendations, but we did review the ones where gifts, because the department heads will come and make recommendations. Some of them, like the police department, Chief Bennett came and did a very good job of presenting the things that he could pay for with his gift money, which is, I think a lot of his 911 grant money is running out this year, as well as the gift. And they were able to do a lot of capital expenses within this current FY. So he has gift things and then non-gift. So we look at all of them to be able to kind of separate them out. Let's see. Each of the departments came in and briefed the committee. Some were extremely prepared, some were less prepared, and it was very inconsistent across the board. I think we wanted to change that to be able to say, here is the format which the capital planning committee, any capital planning committee would like to have things presented. You know, here's a current bid, this is how many bids I have, this is the data that I have. So we were looking for some consistency for next year, so we'll be able to communicate with the department heads on that. But overall, we would say that of the department heads and committee chairs that came in to speak to these things, they were very well prepared. So non-tax impacting this year, so really just kind of like an FYI, this is how they're using their enterprise funds. Cable Commission is going to, or at least the recommendation, our recommendation is to let the Cable Commission proceed with Scout Hall equipment and furnishings to the tune of $10,000. Council on Aging is going to work on their kitchen. That is part of the debt exclusion and donations to the tune of $45,000. Library had several expenditures with their gift fund. Foundation and mechanical maintenance, general exterior maintenance, interior maintenance, and then roof repair. Police are continually upgrading their wide area network system with their 911 grant. That's about $75,000. They're also using that for radio system upgrades within their squad cars or their vehicles. And the sewer department is doing pavement improvements within this year. Let's see, that brief was very good. They have currently kind of like a very convoluted way to get in and out of their treatment plant. So they're really looking to try and make it less, trying to bring order to chaos, is how he presented it. Okay, so those were the non-tax including impact. The tax impacting requests, we categorized 25 requests, and we were able to rank 11 of those requests based on the available budget that we had, and then also worked a priority system into it based on life, health, safety, and necessity to the community. So the fire department and police naturally had a lot of them for life, health, and safety. The breathing apparatus bottles, that was kind of a no-brainer. They're expired, or they're expiring. They needed 8 of them to complete their full complement, so that was $9,600. I did notice that there were some comments sent in after the town meeting questioning why we're not using grant money or other sources. Why are we using operating funds for fire department or what's the word, for safety issues? I can't recall who sent that into the town, but that's a very good question to ask. Like, for something like that, why aren't we looking for grant money to be able to do something that is already built in? The life cycle of these things is already built into it. We should be able to not go to the taxpayers for life, health, safety stuff.
Yes, because there are some specific grants out there for fire department stuff, as well as like the grants for the police, bullet-resistant vests. And there's, like you said, there's a built-in time cycle. You buy them now, their lifespan is 10 years, 5,
Yep.
whatever it is, so a year from now, you should start preparing the grant and be looking for them. And some other towns are very, very good at tracking
Yeah.
grants and utilizing them. And we're lacking in that ability.
So I think we can get better about that. So if at least from the capital planning committee's from that perspective, or even this committee's perspective, if we know that there are capital requirements throughout the departments and we categorize them, I suppose it would be the committee's, or the capital planning committee's red flag if we were to get something like that where we think, or we would consider other sources of money for that. So that's probably a good takeaway back to the capital planning, or at least some feedback to the department heads to say, we can assist you with that, but, by the time it gets to October, we know that they need it and otherwise. So that was the first item. Second priority was the ambulance 2. That posed a significant portion of the available budget, and we actually had to devote not only for the lease for it, but we actually, to borrow at the rate that we would need to borrow at, we would have to also push forward $65,000 down payment, $65,000 down payment to get to a point where the lease would not exceed what the town's operating budget in future years would be able to handle. So that was $120,000 right there for ambulance 2. Third priority, fire department, we were able to at least get them one patient stretcher system. That's $58,000, and they need 2 of them, one for each ambulance. We were able to, at least within this calendar year, get them one of them. Telling Chief Dickey, we can most likely get you one next year, the other one. Fourth was the generator for the new police department, to the tune of $40,000. That had the current generator that they have is single phase, whereas the new department needs 3-phase. Selectwoman Haley Brooks questioned why that wasn't built into the cost of the
original borrowing.
yeah. I didn't have the answer to that, but, certainly a good question. We viewed it, at least our committee level, if it's a need and what its use was going to be, we put that higher on the priority list, because if the town's emergency services is stressed during power outages or anything like that, we don't want them to go without that. They would only be able to operate the radio system, I think, in the new police station if we had any kind of natural disaster or domestic emergency. Fifth priority was a truck lift for the mechanic bay for the DPW. They don't have the current capability. We sought to improve the life, health, and safety of the mechanics down at the town garage and getting them the truck lift that they required for $23K. The current voting tabular machines are end of life, end of service as of this year. So we got the town clerk under the sixth priority, $17,000 for 3 new voting tabular machines. Seventh priority, building and grounds, was the town hall front door. It was a security concern. Town administrator said the cost could fluctuate between $6,000 and $10,000. I think that given the ballpark figures for a lot of these, correct, that we'd still be, even if it was a few $1,000s more to fix it, we'd still be able to absorb that. Eighth priority, the DPW is switching from sand to salt in the near future, and part of that requirement is that they need a salt shed. So a new fabric salt shed, approximately $28,000 for that, is part of their need to be able to make that switch over. And I think the town would probably appreciate that very much.
Did they give a size, like how big, how many yards? It
I
could
did not put the specificity in the report.
Oh, but it will be in the presentation,
Attachments,
probably?
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yep, I don't have the file with me tonight, but that was 28,000. I'm not sure how big it was. But we did go through that to make sure that it was sufficient, and the fact that, you know, if it's fabric, what kind of fabric? It's a heavyweight PVC construction, I think.
Yeah, Ashburnham has a fairly good sized one, and they've had it for a number of years.
Oh, good.
They-
Yep. Emergency management, for quite a while, they've been using beg, borrow, and stealing, well, not stealing, but you understand what I'm saying. They've been using their own trucks to pull their trailer. They asked for basically anything that would help them out with that. Although we did not have the capability to buy them a brand-new truck, if we can get them a new, used, or transferred 3/4 ton pickup truck, we expended $35,000 towards that effort. Last two, buildings and grounds, GX 545 gas tractor. It's basically a John Deere that they required. That was a little bit on the low end money, $12,000. And then finally, 11th priority was that for the DPW, a refurbished sweeper replacing the current one that's apparently falling apart. And based on the amount of sand that I see out there, hopefully they can get this. They can get this soon. And we did stress, if we make these recommendations and they're ratified, make the purchases within the year that we make them. It's happened in the past where we make these capital recommendations, but they don't execute them within in a timely fashion. So we made sure that the select board understood that.
And they get lost in the shuffle, and/or the price goes up, and then they gotta come looking for more money, and it just, the sweeper is, if they're moving to salt, there's gonna be hardly any sand in the street to sweep, and that,
Right,
to me, that just, well,
Well, and we thought that too, like, you know, giving them the sweeper after the fact, but I think it's still gonna take them some time to do a switch over for that.
well, hopefully, if they're running out of sand at Sadie's Pit, like they say, we're not buying sand rather than buying salt.
Right. And basically, those were the recommendations. We did also include within the report the fact that our capital requirements are going to grow before they are reduced. So if you think of it, if we have not spent money on capital projects within the last few years because we've had lower budgets, we're now looking at vehicle fleets and otherwise all occurring, all these things where we've deferred it over the years, within the next few FYs, we have like we had $1.3 million in capital requests this year, but we're only able to accept 450,000. 2021, about $1 million. 2022 goes to half of that. But we've got our work cut out for us within the next 2 FYs.
And the smart move is, for just like vehicles, get new ones, as many as you can at one time, and then get on a program where every couple of years you trade them while they still have value, instead
Right.
of running them into the ground.
Yep. And providing that guidance to the high vehicle, like the police department. I think
And if you're gonna,
we did 3 this year.
yeah, if you're just gonna run them into the ground, then don't buy new, buy used. I mean, if you're not gonna maintain and cycle them out,
Yep.
and it's a hard place to get to, but the sooner you get there, the better, in the long run, the better off you'll
Right.
be.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Alrighty. Thank you, I just wanted to kind of get that put out, because it's a good thing to be aware of,
Mhm.
the tax and non-tax impact, and remind people of, there are gifts and other things and grants out there. And the 27th will be here, before you know it.
Yeah.
And, the initial warrant and stuff will be coming out. The warrant opens next Wednesday on the 13th, so. The time she fly by. Thank you for that, Mike. That was good. Excuse me. The next item on the agenda is the second quarter financial report. I don't know if people have had time to look at that, or if you've put, with all the stuff going on, if you've had it.
Which,
The thing that I would just comment on, and this is email that had come into the advisory committee's town email that I forwarded to everybody from a resident, and there were some questions on here, and one of them pointed out that at the special town meeting last fall, there was $15,000 that was supposed to go into the highway department fund, and it was in error added to building and grounds. So that was a question, and town administrator responded to that, and he CC'd us that had been corrected. There was a couple other small issues, they have been corrected. There was also note that, from the town treasurer, one item was pointed out, the veterans' benefits for, at least the second year in a row, but for several years. She notes that there will be needed a transfer of up to $20,000 for that fund to make it to the end of the year. That particular item really bothers me personally, but it is what it is. So that is something to keep, that will be coming our way eventually, unless they do it at town meeting. There's a notation that the accountant made about Chapter 90 money that I think maybe the paperwork wasn't filed, because you have to file paperwork in a certain way by a certain time frame for those reimbursements to come back, because you do the project, you spend the money, you submit the paperwork, and the state reimburses you. So we're waiting on $104,385.82, and those are precious road dollars that we never receive enough of to properly just maintain our roads where they are, never mind
Right.
do a lot of improvement on them. And the roads, our roads, like many, many other communities, are in bad shape, even though most of the roads in the Commonwealth are maintained by cities and towns. She also made note that some departments are over 50% spent, and this is just the second quarter. The advisory committee was one of them, but that was for a radar license, which was $700 out of like a $1,400
Right.
appropriation, so. Those are the highlights, the things that, you know, that were pointed out. The assessor's business was pretty good, the treasurer, we'll be hearing from things like that, on the 27th. Does anyone else look it over, find anything, any questions for Carter or the accountant? And I went back and I looked at the quarter, and I looked at the last monthly one we got, and the numbers were the same, so it's,
Okay.
there weren't errors that way.
You know, other than the other observations, you know, sent in, I didn't have anything else.
And the amount of that 15,000 for highway was off from Article 13, from special town meeting, and,
Article 13.
it was just, which is one of the reasons why, you know, it's important to have this report sent out monthly, and, you know, departments look at it, so they're either not short, so they're spending money that's, you know, on the books isn't there, or you have more money than you're supposed to have, which is the whole idea really behind having it monthly. Not only for us, but for departments, so they can track their money and keep their budget in line, and notify the accountant of, hey, there's an issue here. It gets fixed before it's a big cluster. Any other concerns or any questions to forward to already?
No.
The next item, and I think we had basically had covered this, is the advisory committee bylaw. I know on the, according to the minutes, we had one question about the terms under, I think, section 2. I sent the thing out, and I did not get a response. It's
From us
possibly-
or,
Well, didn't we resolve it? I thought we
I
had a
think
question and then
we might have.
talked about it a little later, like continue the discussion. That's what the minutes reflect, and that we were like, no, it's good.
I think we went back, where was it? For the wording. Deciding decide to seek clarification on which one was that? Oh, yeah, change to section 2, but I think we left it.
I didn't think we had anything else to talk about it.
Yeah, I think we left it.
Based on the minutes, you
Yeah, we
guys
did.
finished it.
With the wording that if it was, since it was gonna get sent to town council anyway before it gets on the warrant, if in fact does make it, they will catch it,
Right.
there. Let me see, I think Tony reflected that. Section 2. Yeah, he left that wording there, so,
Yeah.
all right. And we did all of the sections.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
And based on the work that we've done within that, I don't know if we're gonna need to meet with that subcommittee or not.
I don't,
I don't think so. I mean, I heard what you said the other day about, timing and otherwise.
I mean, the
At
warrant
this point,
opens-
I think for the spirit of why we wanted that subcommittee, I think we've achieved that within the work that we've done. I really do.
Because some, like I said, one selectman that was on it, he left, and then
Yeah.
we kind of didn't hear nothing and asked, and then we did it in the meantime, we handled it.
Yep.
It's done.
I can give
Now-
that, I can give that feedback to Mr. Kaplis. I think we're where we need to be.
Now, the issue of submitting it. Do you want, I could send it to Carter and say, this is our submission for the warrant, for consideration to be on the warrant for the next town meeting when they're opening the warrant. I don't know how many people can go. I'm in limbo. Wednesday, Monday, and this is, it's another subject here, but it's right after this upcoming meetings. We have a meeting with the school committee, selectmen, us, Phillipston, both matching. Monday, the library at Narragansett to talk about their budget and so forth. Now, depending on, I went to the meeting on the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out about that meeting by watching their January 30th meeting.
Uh-huh.
They started to make a motion to vote, and then some of the members talked about they wanted to have input from the towns before they, make a decision and see if there's any movement or anything like that. So Monday, depending on, the end of that meeting, they have a regularly scheduled, school committee meeting on the 13th at 6 p.m. The selectmen have a meeting on the 13th at 6:30 p.m. They're opening the warrant. They're gonna talk about, moving the sewer collections
Yep.
to town hall,
Yep.
good, bad, and that.
Yep.
I think they're gonna talk about budget stuff. I sent the email, I believe, that came from Carter to all of those. So, we talk about that.
You responded to that?
What's that now?
Did you respond to the sewer commission proposal?
I responded that I might not, think I'm going to the school committee meeting.
Okay.
So, if they were looking for us, they CC'd us, looking for us to come.
Mhm.
I just let Carter know that, it was looking like I was gonna go to the school committee meeting, cause that's a big budget number, and it depends on what happens Monday. If the school committee indicates they're still gonna kick that around, then maybe I pass and I go, and I go to the, selectmen's meeting.
They're definitely looking for input from us. Mr. Kaplan said, please advisory committee advise.
Well, yeah, I saw that, I kinda chuckled too, before you all were on, but
And Carter,
anyways.
in one of his memos, he said, for the first time in a long time, I really don't know how to make up this shortfall.
I got a couple ideas, and it'll, probably drive a couple people nuts, but, and it's I think I'm on solid.
Yeah, for the
Leave
first
the
time in my
ground
career,
to
I am
what?
at this point completely without an idea as to how to close such a gap. I get it.
Was the tax override, that's
Yeah.
the way right there.
I don't
But
think the citizens are
again,
gonna want that,
like
not
the-
after the last
Again,
couple.
like the capital things, they're all of this now is, this big wave that's been coming since 15,
Right,
since the school was voted, and the police thing, this. And last year at the joint meeting, I was sitting there, and the school committee members that were there, they all but said there was an override coming, there would be a situation
Yeah.
where you know, the override.
With straight faces.
big, was gonna be big.
Mhm.
I mean, they all but said it. But this wave has been coming since 15, since the school was approved.
Mhm.
You know, it's just, and it's coming all at once. I mean, the school, bonding, they're planning on, approving 380,000, I think, payment. Cause the bands are, you know, are now all, you know, they either extend the bands or they come due. I mean, this is all stuff that's kinda been out of sight.
Mhm.
Because, you know, the bands pay the bills, but the payment of the bands from the tax base has not, or from, you know, the general obligation bond has not happened. But I mean, all of this stuff is just, this big wave is getting ready to hit shore. And, it's gonna get people's attention. And the dollar on the tax rate is 638,252. So if you need to, come up with $1 million, you can do the math, it's a couple of bucks, just short a couple dollars, just to pay that 1,180,000 school. Cause there's two increases there, there's stuff coming from the state and the school's just operating budget. Why the town is getting hammered by the state with our minimum contribution of a little over 200,000 is, and the transportation cost, which is why I'm kinda hoping that Monday night, the school committee indicates that, there's more discussion instead of a vote coming,
Mhm.
because the delegation is, Ann Goby and, Representative Whips are scheduled to be at the selectmen's meeting,
On Wednesday?
yeah, on Wednesday the 13th. And I would really like to make a point of, their budget should cover, regional school transportation, cause that's $700,000
Yeah.
that we have to pay.
Right.
That the state is supposed, that's the carrot that they dangled way back when for regional school districts, where they would pay 100% of those costs, and they have never done it. That's a little more, that's a little over half of that 1,180,000. Well, actually, it'd be less, because if they paid the transportation, you'd take that 700,000 right out of there.
Right.
So they'd be dropped down to a little under 5. So, not that 500,000 is, you know, an easy sell, but it's better than 1,180,000, along with all the other stuff that's coming.
Yeah.
So, you know, again,
And-
it's,
The scenario that, you know, they had several scenarios.
and the debt payment this is the last year of the debt for the new high school. So, that's, in today's dollars, I think it's, like around 61 cents or so. This is the last year.
Uh-huh.
So July 1, we don't make those payments anymore. That's why if you look in the school budget, see, it's 0 for the debt. But that's really not gonna go anywhere, cause, I mean, that's coming back, you know, some way or fashion, the school budget, the school building, the police station, one of them. And I hope the town doesn't go, you know, doesn't do the police station for no 10, 15 years, cause the interest is just gonna,
Right.
it's gonna cost more. Bite the bullet, pay it off short term, and it goes away. But, so we have the meeting on the 11th, where they would like us to come. I know the selectmen would like us to come on the 13th. The school committee, it depends, like I said, I'm gonna go and hope, and wait and see how that meeting ends, what happens there. Then we have the meeting, I think it's the 27th, for the initial, to do the budget and the warrant package. On the 13th, the warrant opens. It says for citizens petition, but that's, the warrant opens for articles, and then they're gonna, when does it close?
You said the warrant opens on the 13th or the 27th?
On February 13th. February 27th is when the town administrator will make the initial budget and draft, you know, I mean, the town meeting warrant in draft form. And that's when you should get those binders with all the budget details in it
Mhm.
that, you know, I personally like. I think the rest of you will probably be going, I got this big 5-inch binder with that. But, you know, it is what it is. And I know they, like you said, Mike, I know they'd like to have us, or some advisory members there on the 13th.
I'm gonna try and go to both.
Because they're gonna do the sewer thing, I think they're gonna talk about the school budget, they're opening the warrant. Like I said, Ann Goby and, Whips, Representative Whips is supposed to be there. And hopefully they are. And like I said, some things can come up, it's the time to press them on, hey, when you guys go do your side of the budget,
Yeah.
you know, maybe $20 per student.
It's going to be a pretty interesting meeting on
Yeah.
Wednesday.
So there's a lot of stuff there, so I can understand why they would like this committee there.
Yep.
At least some members there. So those are the few meetings that we have coming up, that we need to watch. Like I said, depending on how the meeting on Monday ends, me personally, whether I'll go to the selectmen's meeting, I'd like to be in both places at once, but,
Yeah.
I can't figure out how to manage that yet.
If you do, could you let me know?
You'd be the first one.
That would be
I'd let
important
know, 'cause
information.
I know we're the same way, like they would like to be it. We could do real-time video conference, and I'd be sitting at selectmen's meeting with an earphone in, listening to the school committee, watching them and say, hey,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
can just sit in the
but,
Oh, is
corner
that-
with my
is-
phone.
Is it happening the same night?
Yeah.
I missed that.
yeah,
Yes.
it's, the school committee meeting regular is on the 13th at 6, and the selectmen's meeting is here at
That's
6:30.
the flow chart you have.
Yeah.
So, and that was one of the things, I remember they had talked about it on the, you know, when they moved their day to Wednesdays. But one, it
Oh,
gets
right.
away from the Monday holidays, two, that's the day you sign the warrant, so they gotta be in the building for their meeting, so at least a couple times a month they, but the trade-off is, you know, somebody goes to you miss one to go to the other.
Mhm.
And the budget thing is, I mean, this year is really especially important. And I don't even know what Monty Tech is doing. I'm trying to watch them to get their presentation, but I thought they were gonna do it early this year, but so far I haven't been able to find anything on them. Cause I did forward the countdown to town meeting to everybody, didn't I?
You-
Yeah.
you did.
Email thing, okay.
Yep.
I have it in my phone, that's why I took my
Okay.
phone out.
Well, I keep paper stuff and I look and I can't, I'm pretty sure I send it to everybody, but,
Well, I can't lose it if it's in my phone.
I say that about my phone, but then I lose my phone and can't find it for hours on end, so.
Oh, no.
Papers, they're there, it's there someplace,
Yeah.
but,
So do we need to do anything with the bylaw?
other than, just get it, we just need to get it to Carter so he can, you know, get it from the selectmen to, and since they're opening the warrant, I mean, I could just email
Oh, to do it on the 13th?
well,
Put it on
just,
the
to-
agenda?
just, the sooner it gets to them so they can
Yeah, yeah.
look at it and go, you know, yeah, in principle, we like this, or, you know. I mean, the sooner they have it. Because it's the 13th and the 27th, that's just a couple weeks away,
Right.
it'll be a draft warrant, and you know, could change, but, if we get it to them, then we'll know,
Right.
by then whether it's on or not.
Would there be any reason why they wouldn't put it on the warrant?
Other than, selectmen don't like it.
Okay,
I mean, we have sent them items, and we're not the other departments, and they have submitted things to be on the warrant, and they just refused, and
okay,
that's Board of Selectmen's prerogative.
right.
But in this case,
I would hope
I
it would
I don't
be,
see them, not doing that. I see them putting it on.
yeah, I just hope it would be given due consideration. We took a lot of time and it's
And,
been
well,
a
and
long
it's been-
process.
It's been a multi-year go-round. I
Yes.
mean.
I think we'd all like to see that end, just be done, and let's get it,
Personally, I don't agree with 100%,
Done.
but.
no, but,
I never do anyway, so, but I mean, it needs to, and there are some things that we changed that needed to be,
looked at, yeah.
something had to go away, one side or the other. And I don't see the selectmen giving up their budget preparing thing. I just don't see that happening, so for clarity's sake and for town meeting, number 4 it had to go.
Okay,
Again, a couple, I know myself, I know Will definitely doesn't agree with it, but
Right.
something had to give. So, on the bylaw, I wish everybody was here, but everybody was here when we did
oh,
it.
yeah,
And again, if anybody has a thing, we can always do a substitute motion to try to change something, talk to town meeting. So I'd look for a motion to send that to Carter for, consideration to be on the warrant, just to make it kind of official.
You guys worked it on the last meeting, right? I
Yeah.
don't think I've seen the latest.
Tony emailed it,
Oh,
Did he?
yep, on the day that we
Um,
finished it,
let's see.
17th. He sent it right from the end of the meeting.
Oh, that's right, you weren't. I thought he sent it. I could
He did.
email it to you right now,
Tony sent it to everyone,
but I thought he
I'm sure I have
emailed it to everybody.
On the 17th?
Yeah,
1/17.
Oh, I was here for that one.
yeah, I was gonna say, I thought you were
Okay,
here.
yep, then I have it. I got it.
Okay, yeah, 'cause it was the meeting before when we started on something that you were at.
I just missed the discussion from the last meeting that you had. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, so I make a motion that we submit the, what are we calling them,
The advisory,
Advisory.
bylaw.
the advisory bylaw as written at the previous meeting
With changes.
with changes to the town administrator and the board of selectmen
For submission.
for
on the
submission on the
meeting
town
warrant.
meeting warrant. Yeah,
That's close enough. I just want a committee vote
That.
to send it.
Second.
Alrighty. Motion made and seconded to submit the bylaws as voted on by the committee electronically to the town administrator for consideration, be placed on the town meeting warrant by the Board of Selectmen. Motion made, seconded, any further hems, haws, he's, huh? Okay. Mike,
Yes.
Amy,
yes,
Deb?
yes.
And yes, and I will, I know it's Thursday, Carter doesn't come in, but he's like me, he watches the email, so I will send that, to him tonight,
Okay,
and I'll make sure I contact him on Monday, just to remind him. And I know Holly she checks her work email too on the weekend, so. I'll send it to Carter, Holly, and Adam. Out of the three of them, somebody will see it. All right, so that's done. We're aware of the meetings coming up.
7:45.
And I think most people, the 11th was, I can't forget offhand who, I know there was one or two who couldn't make the 11th, but most of us was
It's at,
either or.
it's at
or the-
5,
it's at
isn't it?
5, yeah.
Yeah.
It might be late.
Yeah, it'll be tight, but we'll be there. I'll be there.
Can be there.
I'll be
can't
there as
speak for
long as
anyone
it's
else, I'll
not
be there.
snowing.
Me and the mouse in my pocket.
That's the all boards meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the selectmen's meeting, those are the meetings, school committee meeting, the board of selectmen's meeting on the 13th, and the meeting on the 11th. So, all right, our next meeting, for the advisory committee meeting, would be on the 21st of February. And does anyone have any, at this time, have any specific agenda requests that they would like on the agenda? If you think of any, just email them to me.
Okay.
We should discuss the impacts of the Moody's rating. I'd like there for it to be a record, that this committee acknowledges it, we can talk through it, the pros, the cons.
And what it really does. and-
Yeah, exactly. So I think we should discuss that.
Okay.
I don't know, I know that there, Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, there's gonna be quite a lot of, dialogue between the sewer commission, the sewer department, the
If
Board of
they show
Selectmen.
up.
Yeah, right.
Ma'am?
He did answer back. Mr. Songer did,
Yeah.
answer back, and he knows what the meeting is about. But it would be interesting to talk from the advisory committee's perspective about structure and how we receive feedback from the state. So if the state is making recommendations,
I don't know, I know I put it together, but I don't know, I can't remember if I emailed, like the recommendation from, I don't have or I couldn't find, put my hands on the 2012 audit from Melanson and Heath, but the 11 I did, their recommendation about the collections, the DOR report from '09, the 17, I mean, the audits, from 13, 14, 15, 16, there was a blurb in there about it, and then there was specific in 17, what was actually written in there. I can email that to everybody, just so because that's part of the memo that they're putting together,
Yeah.
that, they're referencing that it's been recommended,
yeah,
so many
there's
different
plenty in
ways.
there. I mean, to the point where.
But what has
if you've
actually,
seen the whole thing, it
Yeah.
even puts like the woman they locked up from Ashburnham in there. Very heavy-handed, but in the same vein, they're trying to get them to say, or the state makes recommendations to protect the town's money,
yeah, they're not, I mean, they're not accusing anybody, and to best of my
No.
knowledge,
but it's interesting that they put that in there.
yeah, and again, in the actual audit management letters and stuff, it's generally just talked about moving the collections. And for those reasons,
Mhm.
separating, the two. And,
There's a fight brewing between those two
I think in
entities.
11, there
It's
was
gonna
even,
come out on
under
Wednesday.
Melanson Heath, I think there was even, a thing about water. I mean, it's just enterprise fund is
Yes.
enterprise fund. But it
Correct.
was, because up until, I think the last time that the water budget was on the town meeting warrant, I think was 13. But it hasn't been, real long ago. But again, like the Ashburnham, Barry, Hubbardston, I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, but it shows that, I mean, it
Yeah.
can happen. It's like a lot of departments don't
Right.
take cash for that reason.
And just, being proactive about centralizing some of the things that we do. Why are we paying 5 different, and just throwing out numbers there. If we do one function, but we pay 5 different entities to do it, collections-wise and, postage and everything, I think finding the efficiencies where we can, based on track record, data. I mean, it looked like they tried to do a lot of data collection
to put that memo in there, and it doesn't put the sewer department in a very good light if they're not being responsive for it. So when it comes time for people to actually make a decision on what makes sense,
And there's, there's the back issue on.
Yes, there
why they're-
is.
Why they are,
why their
They-
raises
they're
haven't
making
gone
that
into
move.
effect, and,
why they're making that move.
yeah,
And to some extent, they have a valid pushback, but myself, I think,
that's why I think that we could offer some
somebody's afraid to give. and-
discussion, or at least some perspective to say, during the town meeting, the issue was, who's in charge of who?
And you go way back and you can see the way it's voted, but as far as like right now, somebody's gotta give. And,
That's right.
and, my thought is, look, why don't you just give on this and then get movement for the whole?
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta give a little bit sometimes
Yeah.
to get something. Cause not everybody's gonna get 100% of they want, and nor should they, I don't think. But that will be interesting. Like I said, I
To say
can
the least.
send that to you, the different parts of the different audits, different years, and what those management letters said. And it does circle around segregating who's doing the billing and the collections.
Mhm.
And the state's reasoning was, it kind of breaks up, makes it harder to steal.
Yeah.
Because, it's like the assessors, they send tax bills out, but you go someplace else to pay them.
Right.
So, and they don't accuse anybody of, being dishonest or stealing, but it's harder for it to happen if
Yeah.
the bill goes here and then the cash goes over there. So the impact of the mooting rating is the agenda item that you want, correct?
Yeah.
Is a good item.
We could at least discuss
And
it.
then, depending on what comes out of, the meeting on the 13th, the meeting on the 11th, cause that school budget and action. Let's come up with ideas or throw stuff out there. I think everybody, including the school committee, is looking for all the input they can get. I talked with one member of the school committee for a while after the meeting, and it was surprising, but a little, the points that they made. And we actually had the same feelings on a few things.
Mhm.
Not, the end number, but the circumstances of how we're getting it, some of the things that are leading up to it, we both have the same, the same questions. A lot of it revolved around the state, but, so I will put that, on the list of, the minutes and that, and
Got it.
the budget, and then whatever, anything else comes up at these meetings that we have.
Yeah, we'll try and be reactive to that.
And we'll maybe have an idea, since we're meeting on the 21st, and then, the budget presentation is so far scheduled for the 27th.
Mm-hmm.
What do these things come out of these meetings coming up?
I don't think we have any old business that we needed to carry forward.
No, I don't think so. Excuse me.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was that memo about the sewer meeting, and they will be talking about the bonds, and there's also gonna be the audit presentation for 18, scheduled, the sewer collections. Gonna award,
When's that?
on Wednesday, yes.
Okay.
They're gonna start doing some moving on the bonds, and then there's action they have to take for the bands, because, like I said, you only push them out so far. Eventually, someone's gotta pay them. They're gonna open the warrant for the annual town meeting. Senator Goby and Representative Whips are gonna be there. And they're gonna do couple of contract things and stuff, so. But yeah, the audit is something I probably should go here, and the sewer collections, I know they want our input, so. That's at the selectmen's meeting. And then the memo with the school, which are, depending if, they were leaning on going with the option number 6, that they added since the January 30th meeting. So our total obligation would be $1,180,000
Right.
over and above what we had last year. And that's a chunk of change.
The one. That's
Do
what
you,
have right there.
Oh.
He's got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, it was the addition.
so, I was gonna comment on the Moody's impact, but I'll wait till our next meeting.
Okay. All set. I have nothing
Okay.
further.
All right, anything else? No?
Good.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.